Now that we've taken in the UI, let's learn the basics of how to navigate the 3D world in Stingray. This type of navigation is not the same type of navigation that you're going to be making for others to move around your level. This is how to actually move around your scene, see things you're working on, and moving and positioning things. Additionally, I'd like to explain how to navigate the directory structure a little bit. I think that this will help you a great deal as we move through this course. If you're coming from 3ds Max, you're going to find a lot of this is really familiar. If you select an object, you'll notice that it gets a green outline, just like in 3ds Max. If I select various objects, they also get the same outline. If you want to take a close look at an object, all you have to do is hit the F key, and it zooms right in on it. It's kind of like zoom extents within 3ds Max. I'm going to go ahead and roll my mouse wheel out a little bit, and you'll notice that if I hold down my right mouse button, I'm able to change my view. This isn't quite the same thing as arc rotate. It's essentially similar in that you're changing your point of view. One thing that's important to note is that whatever direction you're looking, if you move the mouse wheel either forward or backward in that direction, you will go that direction. If you want to see everything that's in your scene, like a zoom extents all in 3ds Max, all you have to do is go to the Edit menu, down to the View settings, and say Frame All. You notice there's currently no keyboard shortcut set up for that. If you want to see your object again, you just hit the F key, and you're brought right back to where you were previously. So let me back out a little bit. Let's take a look at some of these other things here. We'll go over and take a look at this coin viewer. Again, I'll hit the F key to zoom in on it. You've probably already noticed that these objects have the transform gizmo just like in 3ds Max. And they work exactly the same way. If you want to move an object along a single axis, all you have to do is grab that axis and move it in that direction. If you want to move it along 2 axes, just grab the combination handle and move it in that direction. And if you want to move it in 3 axes, just grab the center of the transform gizmo and move it that way. Now, if you want to be pretty specific about how you're moving objects, you're going to want to use the snap commands. Over here on the toolbar are the snap settings. If I click and I hold down the snap settings, you can see what my current snap settings are set at. You can see that I'm snapping to the grid in 1 meter increments. Now, whenever I move or transform an object, you can see that a grid appears. If I move my mouse off that object, you can see the grid disappears, and our scene grid is over here at the center of the world. This makes moving objects very easy. When I move over the transform gizmo, you can see that the grid appears, and because I have my snaps on, I'm moving in 1 meter increments. I can change any of these settings at any time. So if I want to move to 5 meter snaps, I can do that. And now I'm snapping every 5 meters. If I want to snap to a specific point, this is very handy for snapping objects together so that they're nested very closely together, right up against each other. Or I can set up my custom snap settings down here. When I bring an object into my Stingray world, it's called placing an object. So I'm going to go ahead and place a new version of this coin viewer. Now don't worry, we're going to be taking a long look at bringing assets into Stingray, so this isn't the only place that you're going to see it. So I just want to make you aware of how objects are placed in Stingray. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our snap settings for right now. And there's a couple of different ways to bring objects into the scene. The first way is to actually just drag them from your asset browser and drop them right in the scene one at a time. You can drag as many as you need to, and it's really super simple to do. If you're dragging in from your asset browser, you'll notice that if you try to move or try to place your object over top of another piece of geometry, it tries to rest and sit on top of that geometry, just like the Place tool in 3ds Max. So whenever I'm bringing assets in, you can see that it will always just try to put it right on the surface of whatever geometry is underneath it. Using the Place tool button is not necessarily the same thing as we use in 3ds Max. Sure, it'll still try to put geometry on top of other pieces of geometry, but the way it works is you actually start placing objects with a click motion instead of dragging them out of the asset browser. To end the creation mode, all you have to do is right-click. Okay, so now that we've created some objects, I'm going to go ahead and just delete all these extra coin viewers that we have here. And I want to talk about navigating the directories a little bit. So down here in our asset browser, you probably noticed me moving around some directories to bring in the coin viewer. It's really important to understand the difference between levels and objects in Stingray. In fact, in Stingray, objects are called units. This is important to remember this because later we're going to be taking a look at how to actually edit some of these units and edit what they do within Stingray. A unit consists of a lot of different things. We have the object itself, but we also have all of the material properties and all of the textures that go along with it. So it's not just a single piece of geometry. It's all of the things that go with it. If I navigate backwards out through my directory structure, all the way up to my Lynda Stingray course project folder, you can see that there's basically two folders at the top of the project directory structure, along with two other files. One is the boot file, and the other is the settings INI file. These two files come into play in some more advanced uses of Stingray that we're not going to be covering in this video. Once we get up to the top level of the Lynda Stingray course folder, you can see that we have two folders that contain all of our content and two other settings files. If we go into the content folder, you can see that I have a folder just for my levels, and this is everything that we saw in the project manager. And then I have a separate folder for all of my models. And you can see that this gets pretty deep. In an upcoming chapter, we're going to take a long, hard look at how to actually organize and work with all of these different files to make it easy to navigate and find things. Okay, that covers how to move around our levels and accomplish our work in Stingray.